The governor says the goal is to get more middle and high school students back inside the classroom after some of the state's youngest learners have already been back. In his news conference from St. Paul, he updated Minnesota's Safe Learning Plan to allow more middle and high school students to return to classrooms. Beginning February 22nd, all middle and high school students will be back inside classrooms for hybrid or in-person learning. Governor Walz expecting all schools to offer their students some form of in-person learning by at least March 8th.
This is an exciting day, Minnesota. We're not out of the woods. I don't want to make us believe that there's not some things that we still need to do. But the work has enabled us to do exactly what we wanted to do: control this virus, save lives, and move back to the things that we love.
I always love bringing my friend Blois Olson with Fluence Media into the conversation when we talk anytime about politics. You thought before the governor's news conference today that this could amount to, as you put it, a nothing burger. But the governor had a 31-page document that he was referencing. So I want to know if you think parents or teachers maybe thought that they got the specifics they were looking for today.
You know, Betsy, I think it depends on what your situation is. If you have younger children that are already back in school, there's no news today. If you have older children who have started to go back in school, there's probably not a lot of news today. But if you live in a district, primarily a larger district, where they just haven't laid out a plan now or within the next few weeks, then I think you got some news today that there has to be an option for some sort of in-person learning by early March. And I think there's a lot of people who are relieved by that.
As we're learning more about the potential dangers of these new variants, I'm sure you're keeping up on them as we are here. Why, as Speaker of the House Melissa Hortman put it today, why speed up the process then of getting the teachers back inside the classroom when we could have a worse situation with these variants of cases in the near future?
Well, I think you have to look at other states where schools have been more in session than they have been here in Minnesota, and that the outbreaks haven't been significant in the school sessions. So I think as you think about that, you look at the vaccines going into arms, you look at our low rates right now, and there is a compelling reason to put people back in school. Let's remember, it's not just about helping parents, it's about making sure the kids have the best educational experience, because we still don't know. We have massive changes for the long term in education because of the pandemic. And we know that kids learn best when they're in a classroom.
Yeah, and some of those long-term changes, one, mental health, that's immediate. We're seeing that, and it's coming out a lot more. Two, the education gap. Have we even really grasped what's going to happen to that?
No, we don't have any ideas, and I think that's one of the challenges here with testing. One of the reasons to get kids back in school is so they could do some standardized testing so we could see what the learning loss might have been over the last year. The other thing is that public education in Minnesota has changed permanently because of the pandemic. School districts are already saying their parents want online options going forward or hybrid options. Imagine a very chilly stretch like we just had in a year from now, and parents being able to say, I think we should all go online for a week so maybe we can learn from Florida or Arizona. And I think the whole lifestyle about how we work, how we learn is going to be thrown into a change mode here for the next 2 to 3 years.
Back to the politics of this, Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, Republican, saying that this doesn't change the governor's announcement today, doesn't change the Senate's plan to vote tomorrow on Senate File 2. His complaint is that teachers' unions have had too much pull. What does that say to teachers across the state?
It depends on what district you're in, whether or not the teachers' union has had too much influence. In many districts, the teachers and the superintendent and the school board have worked well together and kids have been in school. In other districts, there's been a barrier from the teachers union to get back to school. So the question is, do you want local control or do you want kind of these other external forces? And Betsy, no surprise, for Republicans to criticize the teachers union isn't news. It is just the idea of how do we make it the best plan for the most kids to be the best educated as we go forward.
Okay, and one of the other Republicans that you put in your morning take, that Minnesota Representative Ron Creshaw, who was a teacher, he points out the governor's own data has shown that transmission among teachers is minuscule. With that said, has the governor said anything before today that you can think of about this when Republicans have accused him of pandering to unions?
You know, the governor was too slow again on schools, just as he's been too slow on businesses and a couple other items. He's got a lot to balance, but that's where that's where people get frustrated with him. It's also where Republicans get frustrated, is because they've been trying to have a conversation for weeks on schools, and there wasn't a conversation. And ultimately, it's that transmission rate that, go back to the variance. It's that transmission rate that makes the governor feel comfortable doing this now. But again, today's plan doesn't mean much for 95% of Minnesota kids, because they already had plans to go back to school.
I have some things I want to talk to you about on the federal political scene. Can you stick with me for 2 minutes?
Of course.
Awesome. We'll be right back. Senator Amy Klobuchar's trip to Mayo Clinic today in Rochester, focusing on various aspects of COVID and vaccinations here in Minnesota.
The frustration in a few months when we start getting more and more vaccines is going to be, well, why didn't these people get it? And why did my kid get it from that person because they didn't get a vaccine? So we just have to be ready to attack this misinformation and get it offline.
Continuing my political discussion with Blois Olson and Fluence Media, Rush Limbaugh. It was announced this morning that he died, and a lot of outpouring of support, a lot of outpouring of hate online because of his passing. What did he do for politics, and what does his passing do for politics?
Well, I think it changed the media landscape more than politics. His radio show changed radio. Ultimately, it created this idea that we would have tribalism radio based on politics. And so I think that changed it. For politics, I don't know that it changes a lot. I mean, he's going to have a loyal audience. He's been held up as, you know, somebody who was an entertainer, but also drove politics. So I think you have to watch it. And I think it just goes to show the hate and the praise online that we're still very, very divided.
Do you think that now with the impeachment being done and behind us, that we are done with that chapter, or will there be some remnants cropping up, do you think?
I think anytime President Trump enters the fray, or his name or his followers evoke his name, that we will be right back where we've been for the last 4 years. I think if Mitch McConnell and Republicans can find a different path, then I think that can change. But ultimately, now it's about the Biden administration. And just like whoever the president is, the other side is going to try to, provide a block or a barrier to their agenda. And I think that's where we're at. That's where we're going to continue to be. But a new Gallup survey showed that the highest number of Americans ever believe that it's time for a third political party. And I don't know how successful that can be, how quickly it could emerge, but I think it's something to watch for the next 2 to 4 years.
You say you don't know how that could emerge, and I think a lot of people want it and are in the same boat, don't know, but there has to be some pretty powerful forces to lead an effort like that already in place. Do you know of any? And any chance that it could be successful enough to have the momentum it needs in 4 years?
I don't know of any in place right now, but there are ways in which an organization can raise money and have the resources to be relevant fast. The question is, does the system allow for it with the Electoral College? And the fact is, somebody would just have to kind of capture the nation's attention and blast their way through the Electoral College, I think. And right here, sitting today, I don't know who that is or how it happens, but I do know that there is a strong hunger in Americans and many Minnesotans I talk to for somebody to do that.
What about election rules, election laws in this state? There has been so much talk since November about redoing the way our elections are run throughout Minnesota. Has that gained any more traction, and will we see reforms in the next 6 months to a year?
I think it's really hard to see any major reform in our elections here. It depends on how strongly the Senate Republicans put that in their agenda for the final negotiation for the session. The budget is number one, and then each side has significant issues that they want to address, elections being one for Republicans. But I have a tough time seeing how it changes significantly. And one of the reasons is because most Minnesotans believe that we have strong election integrity in Minnesota, and that it's a good thing that more people vote than don't in Minnesota, and that we lead the nation. Because Betsy, we always love to be number one in Minnesota. So if we're number one in voting, the election system works for most people.
Well, we're number one at being nice, I think. You think.
You are.
I don't know about that. I try to be so impartial, and I still get blamed from both sides. That's all right. That's neither here nor there. But I want to end on this note, and it's completely separate from everything that we have talked about. I have subscribed to Morning Take that you put out every single day, and I keep telling people, subscribe to it because it is the best when it comes to down the middle take on politics, left and right. Now, something that I have been meaning to ask you is, if people need a speaker, you put this in your Morning Take, if people need a speaker that they can hit you up, what kind of speaking engagements do you do? Because I would want lots of people to talk to you. That's why I like talking to you.
Well, we talk about the history of Minnesota, why Minnesota is so politically volatile, what the factors are there, and just kind of the trend lines. And, you know, it's just more of an informative Q&A that people talk about. And, you know, people can subscribe at fluence-newsletters.com. And, you know, our goal is to be down the middle. And Betsy, we know we're successful when we get criticized from the left and the right in the same newsletter as well.
Is that what that is? I can consider myself successful.
Absolutely.
Oh, you're so kind. I would tell teachers to hit you up and bring you in virtually right now, but in person down the road too, to bring you inside classrooms. Because I have my boys watch these interviews, because as they ask me questions, I'm like, hang on, Blois knows the answer.
Well, thanks. My own kids have even started to watch, so watch out.
For sure. Thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Talk to you then.